Muting. Okay, we're good now. All right, let's get our slides up, please. Thank you, Emily. So welcome all. Happy New Year. Welcome to our first of the 24 Community Benefits Advisory Group meetings. Next slide, please. We do have closed captions today in English and Spanish. English closed captions are available within your Zoom and YouTube. Users can follow the link to view both English and Spanish captions in a separate browser window. That site is https://ibr.news/captions. Next slide. At the bottom middle of your screen, you should see a menu of options. If you can't see the menu, hover your mouse over the bottom middle of the screen, then click on the CC icon and a separate window with captions will appear. Next slide. We are hoping to have some ASL interpreters join us today. Unfortunately, our regular folks are both sick. And so we may have somebody join us here in the middle of the meeting. We'll get them up and running as soon as they're able to join. Next slide. There is an opportunity to provide public input shortly here this morning. Verbal public comment will be welcome in the Zoom webinar during the designated time with the option to turn on your camera. Please use the link located in the meeting description on the YouTube page or on the IBR CBAG meeting webpage. Commenters will not be allowed to share their screens and will be removed from the room once the public comment period concludes. To comment by phone, please dial 1-646-931-3860 or 1-408-638-0968. You'll enter meeting ID number 823-5803-3783 and passcode 385815. You'll dial *9 to raise your hand, and when you're invited to speak, you'll dial *6 to unmute yourself. Next slide. Our group agreements in this space, we put relationships first. We'll stay focused on our common goal. We will notice and attend to power dynamics in the room. We create space for multiple truths and norms. We will be kind and brave. We practice examining racially biased systems and processes. This is a learning space for everyone, so please look for opportunities for learning. We ask advisory group members to turn on cameras as you can as we share this space together. Please take care of your personal needs as they come up. Virtual participation or participants can participate by taking written notes, using the raise hands and speak features for active engagement. We welcome diverse perspectives. It is okay to disagree. We ask you to move up and move up. If you tend to do a lot of talking, we ask you to move up your listening. If you tend to do a lot of listening, we ask you to move up your talking. Assume and have good intentions. Next slide, please. And with that, I will invite our program administrator, Greg Johnson, to get us started.
Good morning, everyone, and Happy New Year. It seems like it's April already. It's still January. Once again, thank you for your participation in this group. This is important business that we're seeking to get done, and we appreciate your help in shaping this. Thank you and welcome.
Your turn.
Hi, everybody. Mengus Maps, Portland City Council. Really delighted to be here today, especially as we start out 2024. I'll tell you, as I'm sitting here today, I'm still in shock and recovery from the ice storm that we had last week. And one of the lessons I take away from the ice storm is how delicate our transportation network is. I want to tell you, the folks over at PBOT performs heroically, and I'm incredibly proud to be part of those teams. But it's also really a reminder of how important this particular project is. So I'm really happy and excited to be here today. Very motivated to get this project moving forward. Thank you very much.
You bet. Thank you. Thank you for crossing over the big bridge. True, we're anxious to thank our WashDOT and ODOT. I know several of our our employees were injured in road issues, unfortunately, so this storm is just kind of one of those indicators, but Mingus, I was so happy to hear that different groups crossed the river to help different communities. So we came over because you were hit hard, but our electricians, our Clark Public Utilities, your folks, the river didn't divide us. So we survived, and it is just kind of an indication that was kind of minor compared to why we're building this bridge. So
Absolutely.
let's get it going.
Yeah, and Marianne, thank you so much, and thanks everyone in Vancouver, everyone in the state of Washington. Supporting this.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anything on safety moment before we jump in? Folks know restrooms out this way to your left, and they can help you out at the front desk. This is going to be these two are exits, yes.
Well, we go out down the stairs and meet right next to the corner of that building across the fence.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So overview of our agenda, we'll move into introductions here, have a brief overview, then we'll have our public comment. After public comment, we'll have our program update, followed by a discussion and confirmation on a first round of recommendations for the program to consider. We'll then have a presentation on some of the framework elements regarding workforce equity and economic opportunity, and then move into small groups for discussion and our large group report out. And then we'll go into our closing and next steps. Next slide, please. So with that, I would like us to go with our introductions. We will say our name, your organizational affiliation or at-large status, pronouns if you choose. And our check-in question today is, what recent positive experience, either personal or professionally, would you like to share with this group? And I will not start with Corky because he just got here, so that seems mean. But I will start with Marcus.
Oh, that's still me. I'm Marcus Mundy, he, him, his pronouns. I'm with the Coalition of Communities of Color. Positive experience. I was snowed and iced but my two youngest kids were trapped with me. So that was a fun experience. They were forced to hear some of my blather, so that was a good experience for me. Anyway. So, thank you.
Walter Valenta, Portland citizen, and I guess just after the snowstorm or the ice storm, it was sort of nice to look forward to the year. So in some ways, it was a good way to sort of put last year behind us a little bit, because this year's definitely for me feeling more optimistic and upbeat. So let's keep that momentum going.
Winter's not over yet. But I appreciate your optimism.
Vicky Nakashima, and I use she, her pronouns. I'm a resident of Southwest Washington and a community volunteer on both sides. I guess one thing I'd like to share is that during the storm, I'm on the board of the International Women's Forum of Oregon, and I chair the membership committee, and I had to close the deal on our new members. I found everybody was home. Not only was I home, but they called and they were either trapped in their car or they had some.
Good morning, everyone. John L. Bell, Principal Equity Officer for the IDR program. I go by he, him pronouns, and I'll use a professional. Spelman Strategies, we're one of the DB firms on the project. We just celebrated 5 years in business.
I'm Kelly Haynes. My pronouns are she, her. I work for Work Systems, which is the local workforce board that serves Washington and Multnomah counties. Positive personal experience is, I'll just refer back to what Commissioner Mapp said about, I am in Southwest Portland, and there was it looked like a tornado went through, and being able to see and be grateful for all the workers that helped with the cleanup and are continuing to do that every day. Just very appreciative of that. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. Darcy Hoffman, she, her pronouns. I'm with Workforce Southwest Washington. We're the workforce board that serves Clark, Cowlitz, and Wahkiakum counties here in Washington. Something positive. So during all of the ice, when we were trapped at home for a week, it finally got my partner to replace the floors in my office and my gym at home. So I'm really happy about that.
Corky Collier, Executive Director of the Columbia Corridor Association, he, him pronouns. I guess my recent experience, I got caught in the bridge lift, and it was positive because it reminds me why we're here. Somebody ought to do something about that. And now it was only the fourth car back. And it also reminds me to not cut it so close on the timing. It's all a little patty.
Yeah, the little remote I have that stopped the bridge lift. Worked great for me, so I'm sorry that didn't work out.
It is. Oh, God.
I'll loan you the remote.
Thank you.
So I'm Ryan Winsheimer. I'm the ODOT Region 1 manager. And I think I guess it's proud, but it's also just grateful. We tried some new communication strategies. We were a little bit more direct in our messaging at ODOT this year around delay travel, stay home. And we were able to keep the freeways open, everything except the gorge. Sorry, Carly. But we were and able to actually move people safely through there. Freight was able to get through all the time. And a huge component of that was the public and their willingness to help us out by staying home and staying off the roads. You'd be surprised how much of a difference it makes for our crews to be able to efficiently get around the system, putting down product, whether it be salt or using the plows to try to maintain the system instead of spending all of their time pulling folks out or trucks that are stuck. And so the public's help with that made a huge difference this year in terms of our ability to respond, and everybody was safe. So.
My name's Janie Haygood. I'm the chair of the Vancouver Parks and Rec Advisory Commission. Pronouns are she, her. Positive experience recently. I have a daughter who just turned 20 up at University of Washington. And she calls me quite frequently to and from class, but she was calling me on her way to a yoga class, which she'd never done yoga and she'd never attended a class by herself. And she was very, very nervous. And she called me afterwards and she was so excited. She loved it. And I just realized that she still has firsts. Right? Like when you think when they're little, you're done with their firsts, but this was a huge first for her. And it sounds really silly. I was like, oh, I still have those, right? So that was just a great experience. It's great.
Good morning, everyone. Aiden Gronauer. I'm the Assistant Director of Civil Rights and Equity for the IDR program. I use they, them, and him pronouns. Positive for me is that I was very excited that I had yak tracks at home. Not fashionable, but I was able to remove my shoes and actually go for a walk. Well, maybe they are fashionable. All right, good call. Because I was going stir crazy, so I'm going to walk.
Eric Holmes with River City Manager, and grateful that last Tuesday, our new public works director.
Oh, wow.
After a very long, very arduous search. Very glad to have him on board. He came from Passcode. And also it was a tremendous opportunity for a new leader in the organization to see capability and dedication of our response workers, our operations folks and our fleet services folks in that response and storm. So
Especially when we had 2 water mains break.
yeah,
Right there. Yeah.
simple.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You got a good one.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Greg Johnson, IDR Program Administrator. And, I would say my personal moment was a national championship. That would seem
Well, simply give it away.
Instead, I'll talk about the Detroit Lions. So I have to tell you, I was a season ticket holder for Detroit Lions for 30 years.
Oh, wow.
And I gave them up when I came out here. I knew as soon as I gave them up.
Go Niners.
All right, let's keep it simple.
I'll share two things. One, I'm building off of Aiden. I just got a notice from Amazon that my yak tracks have just arrived. So that means things are turning up and then we won't have any more snow this winter. You can thank me for that. And as I kind of signaled in the introduction, my head is just still swimming with the just real acts of heroism I've seen over the past week and a half, 2 weeks or so. You know, for about 9 days, we had Portland crews working 24 hours a day, typically in 12-hour shifts. We had crews sleeping in the office, an image that very much sticks with me, which I saw the picture of. It's a work crew, I think it might have been environmental services people, climbing over some down trees, which is about as tall as I was when they were down, with a blowtorch in one hand, because they have to climb over, they have to get to equipment which is frozen. So the blowtorch is just there, they're climbing the tree to get to the other side with the blowtorch to melt the ice so they can add fuel to their equipment, which gives you a sense of just how all in our public servants were. And that's true at the city. It's also true at the county, despite what you might read in the papers. And this side of the river too, this is just a moment when that makes me so proud to be in the business of being a public servant.
Hi, Tom Hickey. I am the North Portland Neighborhoods Representative with the Citizens Advisory Group for the IVR. My personal positive experience during the snowstorm was 48 hours with my 1-year-old foster granddaughter. So we took her for the weekend as respite for my kids. And we got to have an exhausting but joyful 48 hours with a 1-year-old.
Yeah.
Occasionally. I just forgotten how much work it is, you know. And I guess it's easier when it's only for 48 hours.
That's true. Send them home. For me, I think, Mingus, I'll go along a thread that you started. Not only were our employees absolutely wonderful, but it did show our community during the snowstorm. We have a little church who had set up a shelter for extreme weather for 15 people. 225 showed up. They used their kitchen, the hallways, the classrooms, the pews in the church. They would not send them out. They couldn't figure out how to do it, but they managed, and then they called for help, and the community came in to help. In a lot of Subarus, by the way. But it was a testament to our sturdiness.
Farley Francis, Washington State DOT. I appreciate the mayor recognizing the incident that we had on our roadways that had my crew not been in vehicles would have been significantly worse. So, and they were out there fixing the potholes that the weather created. So it's a reminder, if you're ever out with anybody drinking in any way, shape, or form, please intervene if they think they're gonna drive home. So on that sobering note, apologies for that. There was some amazing housework completed at my house. We've had a stair project in the fun house of my upstairs, which nothing is plumb, nothing is common, no consistent measurements at all. And Nick found a way to sort of finish it, and it's like 90% finished, and it looks amazing. And it's looked like a kind of partial wreck for many years. So it's really exciting. And then my handstand practice seems to be continuing, so I'm really excited about that. We had a nice hold and hitting it on Sunday, which is amazing. So I'll keep working on it.
I'll shift to online. Peter and then Scott, please.
Sorry, it took me a minute to find the unmute button. Peter Fells, pronouns are he, him. I'm a member of the Alliance for Community Engagement in Vancouver, Southwest Washington. Positive thing is my family and most of my friends all made it through with no power disruptions, and we're safe and nobody fell on the ice, and hurt themselves. Plus I got some deep cleaning done in the house that needed to be done, and I was housebound, so finally got around to doing it.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Scott McCullum, he, him pronouns. I'm the superintendent at the Washington State School for the Blind. Positive for us was, you may not know this, but we, our students go in and out every single week. Our residential students are bused in on or flown in on Sundays and bused or flown home on Fridays. And I'm just super proud of my staff because all of our students were there. I had 45 students in our cottages, and my staff, my cottage staff, my health service staff, my food service staff, my custodial staff all made it in throughout that snowstorm, ice storm, to keep our students safe and our campus a safe place for them to be. So really happy for that. And we had a couple students who got stuck there over the weekend, and because we couldn't get them home on the east side of the state, but they made the best of it. We went bowling on Friday. It was great.
Nate and then Jasmine.
Good morning, everybody. Sorry I couldn't be with you this morning. I will definitely be in person the next time. Nate McCoy, President and CEO of the National Association of Minority Contractors for the state of Oregon. Very happy to report my personal and probably professional best is NAMAC has grown in the state of Oregon to the largest chapter of NAMAC across the nation, working with our Washington state partners. We also just got 15 new NAMAC members alone in January, all related to the construction industry for people of color. And then the best news was Jonelle ODOT leadership and the governor's staff calling to personally thank NAMAC as one of the advocates who helped get this $600 million for this project. That is the state's largest allocation, is what I understand, for federal funding, with a $5 billion to come hopefully soon. So for me, that was very good. That means there's work coming for many of my members and the community around these projects. So just happy to be here today. Want to keep that engine moving. And Greg, we'll see you in the Big Ten soon with my Oregon Ducks. So thank you.
Thanks, Nate. Jasmine.
Good morning, everyone. Jasmine Tolbert, she, her pronouns. I'm here representing the Southwest Washington Equity Coalition. I really appreciated the snow to a certain degree, but I was trapped in my neighborhood. I'm out in Ridgefield, and I'm grateful that I had my utilities, but I'm even more grateful that I was able to spend a lot of time with my neighbors, whether it was lending a shovel to each other, lending some eggs to each other, having different breakfasts and lunches at each other's houses. So it was just a really nice time to just kind of bond with my neighbors and do all the stereotypical, like really neighborly activities. So that was really nice.
Thank you. Jessica, then Michael.
Hi, I'm Jessica Green. I, she, her pronouns. I'm the interim executive director at the Portland Parks Foundation, a citywide parks nonprofit in Portland, Oregon. I will say that I'm very grateful for the clear roads by the end of last week, because I'm also the chair of the Friends of Tryon Creek, a nonprofit that stewards community out in the Tryon Creek State Natural Area in Southwest Portland. And we were able to go on our 2-day staff and board retreat last Friday and Saturday in Silver Falls State Park, which really was a magical experience to spend that time with each other. So.
Hello, I'm Michael Strauss. My pronouns are he, him. I'm here nominally representing Kimco Realty, the owner of the Jansen Beach Center, but more broadly representing the interests of our tenants and really all the businesses on Hayden Island. And then the happy note is just that thrilled to be off to a strong start to 2024, and all of my loved ones and coworkers seem to be happy and healthy, and I think that's amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's pull the slides back up, please. Thank you, Emily. We're going to move into public comment. Next slide. So to make a verbal public comment via phone, you'll dial 1-646-931-3860 or 1-408-638-0968. Meeting ID 823-5803-3783. Passcode 385815. You'll dial *9 to raise your hand. I'll call on participants to provide comment, and then you'll be able to dial *6 to unmute yourself. Please provide your name and affiliation. We have a 10-minute time frame that will be divided among the number of requested speakers. If we run out of time and you have not had a chance to speak, you can still provide comments after the meeting. For committee members, we did not receive any comments prior to the meeting. Xander, do we have any public commenters today?
I believe we have one, Jan V. I'll let them in now.
Thank you. Hi, is Jen with us? Jen, did you want to make a public comment this morning?
*9 to unmute.
They're in the room, so they should be able to unmute. Let me ask them to unmute. Maybe they don't intend to make a public comment.
Go, *6.
That's my phone.
Yeah. Okay, well, Jen, if you're trying to come off mute and you can't, we're unable to hear you. But we will come back, Xander, if Jan does want to make public comment. But right now I'm not able to have them unmute despite asking. So I'm going to have us move on to the next part of our meeting. Next slide, please. To submit comments after the meeting, you'll fill out the comment form on the website, or you can email comments to info@interstatebridge.org with CBAG Public Comment in the subject line. You can call 360-859-0494 or 503-897-9218, or you can call our toll-free number at 888-503-6735 and state CBAG Public Comment in your message. Written comments need to explicitly say CBAG Public Comment in the subject line or the body of the message for them to be identified and distributed to members. All written comments must be received prior to 48 hours in advance of each upcoming meeting in order to be distributed to advisory group members. Comments received after that point will be distributed to members in advance of the next meeting. Next slide, please. With that, I will hand it over to Greg.
Thank you, Shannon. Once again, good morning, everyone. Greg Johnson, IDR Program Administrator. I didn't know if we had slides associated. 2 slides. Well, the team has been extremely busy since we last met. We had Senators Murray and Cantwell and their staffs come here to the bridge and take a tour and then do a press conference and deliver the good news that we had won $600 million in mega grant, which is our first federal dollars into the program. So we were of a hand clap. So they made the announcement, which was great. We are having the start of session in both states. So myself and Frank Green, Assistant Program Administrator, was testifying in front of the Senate Transportation Commission in Washington, which went very well. They were very appreciative of the hard work this team and the region are doing to move this project forward. We had a bi-state legislature. I thought that was a comment on.
Oh, no.
We had a bi-state legislative committee meeting that was very good, and we are looking to meet with the bi-state soon after session ends in both states. We continue to do community presentations. We are all over trying to make sure folks understand where the project is at and about the upcoming draft supplemental release in the spring. So we had a great workshop with small businesses and DVDs earlier this week that was tremendously well received. So things are busy. We're moving forward. Next slide. So this is where we're at with funding and how we hope to fund this project. So once again, you can see that we have all of the local commitments, the tolling, the ability to toll, which we just got good news yesterday that the Washington State Transportation Commission and the Oregon Transportation Commission created a subcommittee that's going to look at setting rates and policies for tolling here at the I-5 bridge. So that big blue box to the right, the light blue box shows what we are expecting from our federal partner. So 600 million of that has been secured. We have a grant application in for the big bridge grant program to the tune of 1.5 billion. So we are, things are falling into place. So the last piece that we will be looking for is $1 billion from Federal Transit Administration in the form of a capital improvement grant. So with that hopefully will set the funding picture to help us get this thing built. With that, I'll take any questions or concerns that anyone may have.
Or just a hallelujah on the 600 million.
We'll take that too.
Great.
Yes.
Eric Holmes, City of Vancouver. So, so the 600 million is really amazing news. From your perspective, is there meaning of that federal contribution beyond just the dollars?
I think there is. I think we've been working with the federal agencies on this project for 25 years. We've had great advocates going to DC to talk to. I think they are so keenly aware of this program. And that 600 million was an endorsement of this region has come together. The federal government is going to do their part. So I was very enthused about the level and the commitment that it showed.
I think you also heard that from Senator Cantwell, just in sort of speaking to the once they're in, they're in.
Yes.
And so that bodes well. So who knows exactly what that means, but that bodes well.
I can take a couple of guesses.
I know, not gonna have those guesses, right?
Any other questions or things that I can answer for this group? Shannon, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So we're going to move into a discussion on this first set of recommendations. A couple of things before we move into that part of the presentation. We're going to share a number of potential community benefits. These are coming from what you all discussed in your early meeting in October. That was really that brainstorm. And then you further refined in small groups in December. It is important to note that these do not contain all of the recommendations that you all started to talk about. We are focused on the ones that are time sensitive, that need to get over to our technical team because they need a little bit more work to refine as they're kind of looking to move forward the environmental documents. That's why it's a smaller list than what you've talked about for the 3 months, but it's really focused on those specific recommendations. Additionally, there's things that you all shared that are common things that DOTs do in these types of projects. We did not put those up in this as well for you to make recommendations on because it is built into these types of projects normally. So this is a smaller list than what you might expect to see if we had the full meeting summaries in front of you. Any questions before I move into
How do we know what those are?
the common ones from the
Yeah.
DOTs? Yeah, so we will send those out to you all. We had intended to have them and they just weren't, the list wasn't pulled together. So we'll make sure that you all see those after the meeting.
But for example, what might some of those be like?
Yep.
This for flavor, I think.
So let's go, Emily, could you go to the slide where we have one of those? Because it's, you can skip this slide. And do you want to go ahead and share, Emily, the piece that the tech team shared on this one? There's one piece that it's a part of it's kind of common, and then some of it you're asking for above and beyond.
Yeah, so for example, in this first one around create pedestrian safety measures such as speed bumps and signs. So some of the feedback we've gotten is that the signage and those parts are typical of the design process and what's going to be included there. But if there's additional pieces around pedestrian or particularities that we're wanting to look at, then that would be something that would need to be explored further. So that's an example of where there may be a standard piece, but then if this group is suggesting something above and beyond, that's what we want to know, and we can, our tech teams can help us decipher and analyze.
Another example is it was stated that repair should be done if there's any damage to existing sidewalks. That's something that's common, or existing structure. That's something that's common for DOTs to do as part of these types of projects.
But you want confirmation on first recommendations today.
And if I can jump in here, I think one of the things that we have been struggling with over on the Portland side is having a clearer understanding of which benefits are required, which benefits are standard, and which benefits sort of go above and beyond. And we'll, as we dive into the slides today, I think we're going to unpack that a little bit. That's certainly something that I've been thinking about right now, Scott.
Absolutely. And again, some of this is just the ones that have that focus that we need to have more of a time sensitive.
Absolutely.
So there are those additional things that are for sure, you're not going to see a lot in the workforce equity, for example, because those aren't time sensitive for the technical team to do more work on. But you all absolutely have shared things that make sense around either DBE participation or workforce equity. They're just not going to show up in your first round of recommendations because they don't have to be today.
So the ones that have to be moved ahead are ones that have to be part of the environmental document?
These are the ones, if you'll remember, we talked about our community benefits. We're not doing a formal agreement. So we'll have some that will land in environmental documents. We'll have some that will show up in contract specifications. We'll have some that may be a part of what the CWA or PLA turns out to be. And we'll refer those over to that table. And then we'll have some that may be part of a third-party agreement. And so this is really that first batch where it's things that could be environmental documents is where they would be codified. And that's what we're focusing on today.
That's a good process question, and I may have missed it because I did miss a meeting or two. So in this process, because it's not a formal agreement, I think maybe back to what the mayor's asking, what is the decision-making process as far as, is it sort of a negotiation between this group and technical advisors, or kind of who is the final decider of what we recommend and then what ultimately is included?
So the program and DOTs will be a part of that. Greg, do you want to expound?
So this group will eventually send ideas, recommendations up to the executive steering group, which is the CEO, includes the mayor, includes the commissioner, the DOTs, the ports, the MPOs, and transit. So it will come before that group for codification and say, yes, these are appropriate. then those will get included in those different venues that Shannon spoke of.
So what we don't see in here then are some of the things we may have recommended that are standard. Or the things that we may have recommended that aren't as time sensitive. Where can we find those things that maybe we don't see today because they're not time sensitive, just to make sure that they're
Yes.
somewhere?
Yes, so they are in the meeting summaries.
Okay.
And then we can also, if it is helpful, we can also put those together in the follow-up that we'll do.
Yes. Okay.
What Mary Ann has.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be great to have a master compendium of all those things, so we don't have to go through reading some things.
Yeah, yeah, we've been trying to save you from the enormous table.
That's quite lengthy,
Any other questions? Let me check online. Sorry, y'all. Okay, seeing none online, any other in the room? Okay, so let's back up a few slides, Emily. Perfect. So as a reminder, we're using modified consensus decision-making, which is the FIST to 5. This is a no way. I've got to talk more about it. Hold on, we need to really think about this a little bit more. I have reservations, but I could be convinced. I guess I'm okay with this. Is it 3? 4 sounds good. 5 is love it. We're going to try to do this in groups of, so you don't have to do this for every single recommendation, and we'll see how it goes. We can always pivot. Next slide, please. So Emily, do you want to go ahead and share what folks are seeing on this slide?
Yes, absolutely. So the recommended benefits that are in the mobility and accessibility category for today are create pedestrian safety measures such as speed bumps and signs, provide adequate bicycle signage both during construction and after program for safety enhancement in local communities, create accessible trails and networks with lighting for safety balanced with considerations for ecosystem health, create bicycle amenities such as repair kiosks, connect to transit service improvements, design active transportation facilities to create a comfortable, low-stress experience, prioritizing the safety of vulnerable users and providing convenient access from the local network to new facilities. And finally, create efficient public transit to key locations, integrating design elements to improve user experience.
Thank you. Any things that folks want to add to any of these recommendations, things you want to talk about on these? Yes.
So these are the time sensitive ones?
Yes.
I would observe it's probably because there is a design component to this, and so trying to work that kind of detail into project design is probably part of why this is time sensitive. So this is stuff like, I look at this list with like the references to safety, and safety for the DOT is a pretty rich and nuanced thing to think through. And then getting it into design. Design hasn't advanced very far yet, but getting that stuff built into design and figuring out what that safety analysis that guides, because maybe speed bumps isn't the right tool, right, in a particular instance. And so that kind of analysis and churn is important.
Right. Nara?
I like these. I'm wondering, have you visualized where the boundary is for this? Highly impacted right next to the construction site, less impacted, not impacted. Are we doing all of these within the highly impacted? Are we doing all of these in the less impacted? Because certainly we're not doing these in the no impact zones.
Yes.
So
Within the program
do you
area?
have boundaries that you put your arms around and say, within this area, we're going to create bicycle amenities, repair kiosks, etc.?
So we've been talking about it as within the program area. Greg, I don't know if you have particular thoughts on the other parameters around that.
What you're hoping to do is connect to the systems that exist. So Vancouver has bike amenities within the community. And if we're filling in gaps and making sure that we're part of your overall game plan network for providing those type of amenities, those are the type of things that we can do within a facility. So once you get into mitigation, for the noise and whatnot, you have specific guidelines for things like that. But for these type of things, we want to make sure that the system overall is connected and works well, rather than just a small corridor.
I know, but Greg, these are so general. It is so wide.
Let me give you an example. So on Hayden Island, the bridge divides the Hayden Island community. So we're looking to make sure that with our improvements, if we have to connect a piece of sidewalk that connects to our facility, those are things that we can do in that broader second concentric circle of impacts.
As I look at that last bullet, efficient public transit to key locations. Are we establishing the downtown shuttle then to work within this area because we're eliminating all the parking and the construction? Is that the type of thing I would expect in that last bullet?
The case may be able to be made for that. I was just at Clark College earlier in the week, and they said, we have 200 people commute back and forth. Is there a possibility that there could be a partnership to fund a shuttle that picks folks up, drops them off at the college, and vice versa? So those things are things that we should be looking at as we get into the specifics of what this could be. And it takes partnership.
And when do we get into that type of specific? Do we just say, yes, we approve this, knowing that in our next conversations, we'll have that specificity?
I think these things will give guidelines to the designers and to the implementers of the program. And details start falling out as you get further along in design, as you get closer to a record of decision that says these are specific impacts on this project.
But you didn't answer my question, because I wanted us to be in that, and you told me designers are going to be doing that.
This group will still be around.
Okay,
Okay.
put that in the minutes.
Yes, it's very much about iterating. So as they do work, we'll bring feedback back to this group so you all can react to it. So it will continue to be iterative.
All right.
Carly, did you want to? Eric.
Building on the mayor's questions, recognizing that there's design work that would need to be done to get to a level of detail that builds that confidence. Is there some direction setting that we can put in here that references kind of leading design practices? Because each one of these things could be accomplished through just mere compliance with the law.
Yeah.
But we're looking for, I think, better than mere compliance with the law. And there's degrees beyond that. And I think about like our water park, some of the pedestrian amenities there. Some might argue could have been accomplished with just asphalt paths, but right, but
Yeah.
but that's not our community standard,
Exactly.
right? It checks a box, it's compliant, and that, so is there a way we can incorporate it into not just this, but others? Some direction setting of, we're really looking for leading design practices and.
Yeah. Is that the language particularly that you're proposing?
Let's start.
For discussion.
Let's start.
So it's okay, so is there a specific one, or are you saying just generally?
Every single one of them up there.
Okay.
That would apply to actually.
I think putting these things through the lens of the urban design team and making sure that they understand, okay, here are the big picture, and that urban design team starts to look at the specific amenities or betterments that you were talking about. Like I said, if we want a stamped colored concrete pad with certain type of blocks for walls. Those are things that the urban design team can take a look at and say, okay, does this fit into the palette of things folks like yourselves have said are important.
Yeah, and it's not important to us to design the color of the tile. It is important for us to get some specificity under some of those.
So Eric, can you repeat your language for me?
That all elements in mobility, accessibility, and I think physical design would reflect kind of leading best and next practices relative to community amenities, interconnectivity. I mean, it's reflecting all of those.
And any local design. Any local, like sort of like, so I think the city of Vancouver has
Local design
context
context.
and standards, and the city of Portland also have those kind of context.
Yes, and it's gonna be, yeah, exactly, because Hayden Island is gonna have to want their own kind of identity reflected there, and
Aiden and Kelly?
And just to kind of add on to what Eric was saying, I noticed there was some kind of common terms that maybe are missing, so maybe we add enhanced wayfinding or something like that, which I think lead more to what folks are talking about around signage, but it adds a little more. And then universal design, so for building to accessibility for everyone that we are building to those enhancements.
radically inclusive.
Radically inclusive.
The term that we use in some of our parks investments.
Okay, I got universal design, radically inclusive.
Enhanced wayfinding.
Wayfinding, thank you.
And I think related to that, is there an opportunity to also reach out to other experts that may not be in this particular committee, like Disability Rights Oregon, Street Trust? I would love to get their advice on language and around inclusivity and multimodal approaches to potentially add and inform the more specific elements. So in another community benefits process that I was involved in, we kind of had different subgroups on different chapters, basically to say, you're the housing experts, let's have you help us write that part. And for like multimodal. So I'm just wondering if there is opportunity, if there would be time to maybe reach out to other groups to glean their expertise to then help influence our input.
Yes.
Is that possible?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's something we won't be able to do like a whole subgroup, but we can do some conversations with folks. And I think Scott has raised that in the past as well. So making sure that we're kind of touching base with additional folks, and that can get wrapped into what your recommendations are. And I think on the bigger things, we have been considering some subgroups and different committees, and it's part of what we're doing in our asset mapping with all of the program partners. Because there's a lot of technical expertise at the Housing Bureau, with the housing folks at the City of Portland, with transit oriented development folks at Metro and TriMet. So we will have, hopefully, we haven't done our asset mapping yet, but I think we'll get some technical experts from our partners to have those conversations.
I see Nate has his hand up.
Yep, Nate, go ahead.
Thank you. Kind of in the same spirit as what you just said, Shannon, about estimates. I guess more of a process question. I love where we're going, starting high and then kind of funneling down to, real deep dive of how this stuff, actually works for community. Is there also a parallel process of the financial impacts of some of these decisions? Because I honestly don't like the approaches of recommending things that we don't know if we can pay for or not. So I guess, when does that process start taking shape? Because I'd love to just know how we pay for some of these things, or if that's really something we need to, still get a grant or federal allocation. Can you describe that for me, Shannon?
Yes, thank you, Nate. So this group of recommendations, that kind of cost analysis will come in that further refinement with the technical teams, the design teams. With a lot of your other benefits, or potential benefits, we're already working on cost estimates. And so as those are raised here, we'll be able to share those with you. The finance team has also identified some potential resources or grant opportunities for some of the benefits. So as you all are moving towards those recommendations, we'll be able to share those. You don't see that in this group, this bucket, again, specifically because it needs so much more work to get further refined before we can really start to cost estimate. But you absolutely will be seeing that information as we move this work forward.
And just one comment, Nate. The program, the two DLPs will absorb certain items that are that come out of this discussion. But what we are also looking for are partnerships where folks can identify other resources that can be brought to the table. We've committed that this committee will not be the grab bag or the Christmas tree committee, but make solid recommendations and also look for resources that can bring new dollars to the table.
My comment was gonna be, I'm Marcus Mundy with the Coalition of Communities of Color. My comment was like Nate said, we're gonna put language in there saying aspirationally, we want the best and most culturally specific or regionally specific design, that the cost elements be in there. Because I know when I'm doing a project, yeah, I want the best of everything and I wanted to do all these things, but so we add a sentence to Eric's statement about mitigating or the best option between cost and design or something like that. It was just in that same thing.
And part of this is really that the nexus to transportation is what Greg's speaking about, of like how close does it nexus into transportation specifically and things either that we break or that we affect, and making those things really integrate. And that's gonna be such a closer tie to building it into scope of project, which is different than some of the other things, which are really awesome catalyst ideas with respect to this program, but really do require that partnership space. So that's gonna be a critical piece, is delineating what things kind of naturally fall under scope that just gets kind of rolled in versus other things that really do, as Greg was saying, that partnership piece is gonna be really important. So I think if we retain that clarity, it's gonna be
Thanks.
Anything else on this bucket?
I'll just jump in real quickly here. I know we're probably short on time. From a Portland perspective, something which really resonates is creating a transportation network that provides people with options other than the single use private vehicles. We're really excited about what we're seeing in terms of like transportation options, and what we really want to make sure is the net layer of work that we build here, especially around biking for our local neighborhoods.
Yep.
So regarding the street trust, just so everyone knows, the street trust has already convened a small working group of all of the alternative transportation people, Oregon Walks, Street Trust, Bike Loud, all the bike community, all the disabled community. And you will be receiving a letter shortly offering to just do exactly what you were suggesting, engage with the process early so that they can be giving that feedback. They're preparing for their comments on the environmental statement, and they're already meeting regularly and trying to have all of the Oregon, and they want to reach out to the Washington side too. So there's a coordinated effort of all the non-car users so they can give really good feedback to you and as soon as possible.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm gonna ask if folks can use our fist to 5 with approving the recommendations that you see on the screen, with the additional caveats of the urban design team will do some work and look at specific amenities. All elements and mobility and accessibility will reflect leading and best practices and any local design context and standards. Enhanced wayfinding, using universal design and being radically inclusive. We will reach out to additional folks, including the group around the Street Trust that they've formed, and make sure that we're connecting with additional folks in the disability community. And that also there is considering the cost impacts. Anything that I missed that we need to add? Okay. If folks could go ahead. No, Dr. Yeah. Thank you, Mayor.
As you're raising your hand.
So let's go ahead and do our fist to 5. All right. Jasmine or Jessica, thank you. I got you, Ben, Scott, Peter. All right, we were mostly 4s and 3s, a couple of 5s, so we'll go ahead and move those forward. Thank you all. I would like to just have a little moment of success of using the 5th slide. Next slide, please. Not everybody gets it the first time around. You guys did a good job. Emily, go ahead.
Yes, and Shannon, just a really quick procedure question. I have 2 slides here under the physical design category. So would you like me to pause after the first one and we vote, or go through both?
Let's go through both and then let's
Okay.
go back so that folks can add anything they want to this before and then we'll do that with the second slide as well.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. Yes, so under the physical design category, we have create designs that prioritize preservation and enhancement of natural features, focusing on the views both from and towards the bridge, and a subnote to include viewpoints or designated areas for cyclists and pedestrians on the bridge to enhance their experience and safety. Next, we have use anti-spray coating and designs to deter unwanted graffiti activity on the bridge. Next, explore mitigation strategies to reduce highway noise for nearby residents. Use material options that are sustainable and environmentally friendly, incorporating local elements such as ash and shells as alternative materials into the program design. Coordinate or salvage existing bridge elements for public display. Next is define community connectors near Evergreen Boulevard and the waterfront, incorporating both active transportation facilities and green space, and implement east-west connectivity and accessibility. Incorporate art and local history and culture into the bridge design to enhance its aesthetic appeal and connection to the community. And finally, create a combined welcome center / ODOT truck inspection facility that will have a curated display of the history of the region, approved cultural materials, photo documentation of the existing bridge, and salvage plaques from the existing bridge.
So let's go back one slide. Anything folks want to add here? So I'm going to just assume the cost piece goes with every single one. Go ahead,
So
Greg.
I'd like to make an amendment to the second sub-bullet. To say use anti-graffiti designs. Just put a coating on a wall, and that coating will wear off.
And Greg, if I might add one more thing on that bullet, not just on the bridge.
Yeah.
In the bridge influence, when you're building pillars and everything else, it's not just on the bridge, it's the entire bridge. And then I'll have one more statement on the second.
Carly, and then Ben.
Hi, everybody. I would love to have a more specific definition of what sustainable and environmentally friendly means to the group. Specifically, are we talking about embodied carbon? Are we talking about habitat impacts and ecosystems? Are we talking about human health? In my experience doing sustainable design work, it's really hard to measure sustainability unless you really nail down what you're talking about specifically. And so I'm a little concerned that just using sustainable language isn't going to accomplish what most people are really passionate about.
So I would look to you to give some recommendations of what you would like to add there.
Sure. So embodied carbon is the measure of the amount of carbon that goes into the production or is emitted from the production of concrete and steel, for instance. Those are both really high impact materials. And so it's likely we're going to have a solution that uses concrete and steel, but there are lower carbon products within those categories of materials. So embodied carbon is one of the metrics I would be curious in seeing. I think that there's also, we've talked on this committee already about health impacts to neighborhoods in the surrounding area. So maybe there's some sort of emissions metric there. And then I think the use of local elements is fantastic. I think ash and shells are a very specific example, and I wouldn't want to limit us to those things. I think that's something for the design team to explore. I love those as examples, but I think there's also others out there.
Thank you.
So a couple of follow-up comments. And what I think, Carly, that conversation is tremendously important. And we're going to seek to strike a balance in some material usage, because there's some materials you can incorporate that have a low carbon footprint, but you have to balance with life cycle cost investments. If I'm building something where I'm gonna have to come back in every 20 years to work on it, or do I choose a material that will give me 40 years of uninterrupted maintenance-free life? So balancing those considerations, we are very interested in concretes that have cement replacements that are lower carbon. So all of those things, I think, are what we're looking for in that. We're looking for native plants to be put in interchange areas that can help sustain growth during hot summers or freezing rains. But yeah, we're going to be looking for a lot of ideas. We have to balance it with, okay, can you maintain it? Will you get a longer life if you make a different choice?
Thank you. I had Ben and then Michael, and then I'll move to the room.
Thank you all. Would like to propose a slight but significant adjustment to the usability of the bridge in the third bullet point, which is explore mitigation strategies to reduce highway noise for nearby residents. I think it's also important to include to reduce highway noise for pedestrians and cyclists, as well as nearby residents, meaning when you walk over the I-5 bridge or ride your bike over, same with 205, the sound is deafening, and which can be quite startling and makes it, even though the pathway is there, it makes it far less usable than it would be if there were noise mitigation techniques, not only for the nearby residents, but also for the actual users of the pedestrian and cyclist users of the bridge. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ben. Michael.
I was just going to comment on the same bullet that Ben was just talking about. He's talking about, pedestrians and bicyclists. And I just wanted to suggest for the group's consideration, expanding the definition of community here, and just note that we would want to mitigate the impacts of the bridge on local businesses and customers and visitors as well. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom and then Marion.
Tom Hickey, I would say on that same point, I'd like to see other emissions from the bridge project being also mitigated in the same bullet point, so that diesel fumes and things like that, or soot emitted into the neighborhoods will be of equal concern as the noise. And I think there may be an element somewhere in there that addresses that, but I'd like to see that emphasized. On the second page, I would be interested.
If I can go back to the point you were just talking about. So noise, we have specific strategies of how to mitigate noise. Either you build a lot of softscape, you build noise walls. When you're talking about this program reducing emissions from vehicles.
It's not a building.
Yeah, it's a whole different ballgame. So I want to temper expectations about what we can do with this program.
Fair enough. My other point was on the line item about incorporating art and local history and culture into the bridge design.
Please hold that. Let's come back to that when we move to that slide.
Right.
I'm on the second page also.
Okay.
Miss
Commissioner.
So we support basically everything on this particular slide. However, it also kind of illustrates one of our questions, which is, these are all great things. It also seems like kind of common sense, basic things. Is this really a community benefit, or are we just re-articulating the bare minimum that we would do in this situation?
So some of these are mitigations,
Okay,
but some of these are enhancements from what a standard project would incorporate.
okay. I think it would be, go ahead.
So some of them, you're right, floor level things, but some will raise up to be more of an.
That's great, and I look forward to that table that we'll pull together that kind of breaks out, you know, the stuff that we just gotta do, or the stuff that we wanna do, and the stuff that really, well, puts us over into the added community benefits.
I'm hearing well, early, hopefully have a matrix that kind of breaks that down. Otherwise, it's like, it's all abstract, right? Yeah, okay.
Anyone else online before we move to the next
Can I just
slide?
add to that comment really quick? I do think if things are already required or already in code, then if we have that clearly, like, is that what we're saying? So then it's like, this group can focus on the community benefits that are beyond what is maybe already gonna happen.
Exactly, Kelly, yeah, I think you said that even better than I could. I can't tell the difference between this a community benefit or we just kind of re-articulating.
Right.
There's some value in articulating the base level, because there's probably a historic misunderstanding of how brash the DOTs can be about our work.
Oh, sure.
Historical. To have the opportunity to sort of own some of the things that are, I mean, like, I think, so it, I know it may feel duplicative in this process to sort of have those things listed, but I think it is valuable sort of for this group, one, to understand what those things are, but also for people who are looking at this work and wondering, you know, what is this group doing, to actually, to sort of see that reflected, like DOT, this is traditionally DOT's work to do these things, because if it is broken, we try to fix it. And we try to, you know, if we break your street, we're gonna work with it.
I would also add that from a compliance perspective, if we have that list, then we can ensure. Yes, we did.
Thank you. Let's go ahead to the next slide, Emily. And then we'll have the mayor, and then Tom, and then Eric.
I had a question about the last one. Because we know that there's a difference in the standards of trucking in Oregon and Washington. 2 trailers, 3. But I also know your area. Are you building a new truck inspection facility in your very special part of the world for this?
Well, my question for today is, I don't know, and we'd like to learn more about where this facility might be located. And frankly, we might need to have some, in fact, we need to have some discussion about how this proposal meshes up with Portland's land use recommendations and the Hayden Island plan. And I won't, because we're short on time and we're all friends, I'll be straightforward. This is kind of this one's controversial, and we need to have more work, at least on the ordinance.
Okay. So there's a couple things going on here, and right now we have a truck inspection facility on Hayden Island. ODOT has one that is in the process of shutting down. Will we need a future? And that's going to be ODOT informing us of what they need. But we aren't going to do anything that's alternate to the city's plans and the neighborhood's expectations.
Well, I appreciate that. We're always here to be good partners with ODOT and whatnot. I'll tell you, this is one where I'm getting some pushback. We just need to have, I think,
Okay. So the other bifurcation of this thing, we've been talking to Expo Center about their vision of what they are going to do. And could we incorporate not a truck inspection, but a welcome center, visitor center, on that site that incorporates some of these cultural materials, documentation of the grid. So that conversation is still something that's viable.
I also wonder whether or not making this a little less specific might be more like helpful.
Yeah.
The idea of like considering where a welcome center and truck support facilities may make sense and incorporating, you know, good historical and other artistic like that probably would be more comfortable, maybe not totally comfortable, but the idea of exploring those opportunities.
Yeah, that sounds like a great path forward.
Well, but in keeping with that, Vancouver could certainly build something, have something on our side that take those last three lines. I think what this is talking about though is a welcome center, a whole bunch of stuff, and something for trucks.
Two very different things.
Right.
So
Because
let's come back.
we'd be happy to have a welcome center on our side that took all of that crap and brought people in. But not the truck.
I thought you were gonna step up and volunteer to take this truck thing, because Portland
Unless
is
you
more than happy to.
wanted to build a truck parking area kind of in the unincorporated part and Clark County, then we would be happy to work with you on that.
So here's what I'm gonna recommend we do. We'll break this into 2 bullet points. And I heard some good language that it will change it to say, consider where there is opportunity to explore welcome center and or truck inspection facility. And it can include some of these things, but there's a second bullet that is around curated display, history of the region, cultural materials. That is a separate piece that you all want to see as a part of the design wholly. Is that accurately reflecting what I'm hearing? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. So my concern about the art, incorporating art and local history into bridge design is that I have seen any number of bridges that were designed substantially by the engineers, and then the art was simply applied as an overlay, kind of as an afterthought in order to hit the budget numbers that are required for art. And I would like to be sure, as a local resident, that the aesthetic of the bridge, not that I want to say what the aesthetic is, but that it's baked into the architecture from the beginning, so that it's aesthetically consistent, and as part of that sort of monumental thing that we want this bridge to be, how do we is this appropriate to upgrade that particular bullet point to be a little more demanding about how the art and architecture are consistently applied to the project? And what would be the language to do that? I feel like incorporate is a little too mild a word, if nothing else. And I would think integrate would be a better word. But really, to me, it's that the aesthetic integrity of the project is consistent and part of the design from the beginning.
So I have baked into design, integrated into design, that it's something, it's really giving direction for design team to look at incorporating art, not as a sticker on top, but as a part of their design.
Yeah, I mean, the bridge itself should be the art.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be an overlay of, gee, here's some plaques of fishes.
It should be distinctive and iconic and respect the Great River of the West, and be something that is inspiring to the region and anyone who visits. And that's a tall order, because it's gotta be short.
Built my own.
Because we all recognize there's a very tight needle that needs to be threaded, right? So you don't get to do the bridge in Spain with the 400-foot spires and that kind of thing. But with the right talent, it can be stunning, elegant and stunning, but it has to be a priority. The building has to be a priority.
greatly at mountains and rivers.
Yeah, that's for check. Analysts on board.
We do.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, we have a firm from London who has done work around the world on bridge aesthetics, night architecture or night engineering, one of them. I think there are night architecture. And so this will not be an afterthought of gluing fish plaques on the bridge. So, but it's, once again, and I'll go back to the comment before, this is more than a bridge, this is corridor. Sound walls, all different elements that we put in place should be a thoughtful effort. And that's what that urban design team is doing, so it doesn't become this slapping stuff on.
Thank you. I'm gonna go to Eric and then I'm gonna go to folks online. I'll come back to you all.
It's already kind of put it in, but just really wanted to build on what Tom brought up, that the whole project, if we can think of it as an art installation, that it is just as much form as it is function. And my experiences generally with big projects like this, there's a lot of emphasis on function and the form tends to take a backseat. And then you mitigate that form issue by putting some class on it. And so really having that the form piece be aspiring to that kind of distinctive iconic, something that really the region is and so that's that same bullet. And then just two other things, what I heard you say, Shannon, on the Welcome Center / ODOT truck inspection facility, was still reflecting that being one facility.
I said and or.
Yeah, I think we should take the word combined.
I think you should actually break those out into two separate things entirely. There's a truck inspection facility, and then there's a welcome center. And the welcome center has the cultural pieces to it. The truck is much more. That way they can be addressed somewhere in the BIA. So,
okay.
And then one last thing, when you opened this segment, what I heard you say was all the cost control things carry on to this segment. I hope that all of the aspirational things will also carry into this segment, that we're still aspiring to, radically inclusive design and leading practices. And,
yes, it will be, and to clarify, that will all be included in what you all are recommending to the program, and then the program will come back to you with what some of those costs. If there's a decision that's made because it's a cost issue, then we'll reflect that back to you all. So yes, it will be part of the considerations for sure. I'm gonna come back to the room. I want to go to the folks online and start with Nate and then Farley.
And Janet, I'm gonna.
Like you're on my.
Yes, I'm gonna participate for the remainder by Zoom, because I
Okay.
have an appointment, I gotta get to it.
Okay.
Did you want to go first?
No, that was what I had to say.
Thanks, Ryan. Go ahead, Nate.
Yep, I'll be quick too. Just to piggyback on the Welcome Center and acknowledging the history, let's not forget that we need to also acknowledge the future. And I'm thinking about the folks who actually build this project. We need a plaque or something that honors the design firms as well as the construction companies who build it. Because I can envision people coming and wanting to know who actually built the new bridge. From a future generations, workforce development, getting more people of color in areas, in industries they're not represented. We should be thinking about not just the history, but forward thinking. So just want to make sure that we think about that. A picture's worth 1,000 words, as they say.
Thank you, Nate. Farley?
Yeah, I'd like to echo what's being said in the room about the art, local history, and cultural piece. I really like the language to integrate that was suggested. And I also wanted to add to that, having those things expressed at a variety of scales might be helpful language. So we're talking about it as a sculptural element, and then we're also talking it at a smaller, more pedestrian human scale element. And so we're not doing just one or just the other, but we're doing both. It's integrated all the way through.
Thank you. Coming back to the room, I'm gonna go with Janie, and then Commissioner.
Janie Haygood, just two quick things. Wanting clarification on what community connectors mean, and if that includes trails, like connecting into our trail system. And then the other thing was just understanding and recognizing that this, as we progress in years ahead, climate change is expected to get worse. How can we mitigate for ice and rain? I know for our bridges where I grew up, black ice was horrible. So is there a way that within that design, we can make sure we're mitigating for that future potential?
I just wanted to really quickly endorse, I think, Eric's framing of the third bullet point here, just really breaking out the visitor center and the truck inspection facility into two separate issues.
Got it. Walter.
Walter Valenta, just back to the aesthetics of the bridge, which I actually appreciate that I believe the project this time is really going to care about that. Because the last time we went through there was a lot of lip service given to that. And at the end of the day, a lot became part of putting salmon mosaics on the columns and calling it art. And so let me tell you something that the architectural group that was convened, that was pretty much ignored through the process, but at least there was a group that did that. In my opinion, it was ignored. The thing that makes a bridge beautiful is its structure. And the constraints of the structure is what makes it a special and iconic bridge. So the idea that the only way you can have a beautiful bridge is that it has to be a table stake bridge or it's not beautiful. Or it's got to be this Golden Gate Bridge is not beautiful. That's not true. The constraints of the height and the structure gets reflected through the structure type. If you have a brilliant bridge architect working on it. So we brought forward ideas on how to keep it within that window with things that weren't cable stake bridges, and were still beautiful. And there are examples. So I'm glad you have Knight Architecture working on this, but also it has to be part of the way the columns are, the structure are, how it's held up. That's what makes a bridge beautiful. And the other thing the architect said over and over again is everything else is added on top of that, gets shaken away during the value engineering. Everything that's extra gets shaken away. Think about the George Washington Bridge in New York City. They were going to put appliques over the structure of that to make it look more like the Brooklyn Bridge. When they saw the actual structure underneath it, they decided not to put all that stuff on top of it. So it's the structure that's going to matter. It's the structure that's going to matter from Grand Pier and from what could happen at Hayden Island, which we can have a Grand Pier on Hayden Island if we, over the next 50 years, if we want to. And they need to see that bridge, even with the low constraints, be iconic because the structure itself reflects all those parameters.
Helen. I don't know if this is the right place to put it, but I do want to see some acknowledgement of specific inclusion of indigenous communities and tribes. So as far as referring to culture, but also is there opportunity? I know there's been discussions about land use. And so if there is any type of partnerships to build utility of the use of the land by tribes or prioritizing indigenous communities as far as the history of this region, the longer history of this region. I would love to see some reference to indigenous communities in this area. If this is the right section for that.
So I think we can add something that I think makes sense for us to reference back to the tribes and the work that they're doing, that we're telling the program to really continue to engage in that, but we want it to be led by the tribes. And so that we can add that language, yep. But it won't be something that you all will necessarily wrestle with in this room because the tribes are already engaging with our tribal liaison. And you will have a presentation in an upcoming meeting to talk a little bit more about that work and section 106. So you all can get a glimpse into that work as well. And just to acknowledge, we're all well aware we're not going to get to the second presentation. We might be able to present, you all won't do small groups, but this is the work of the committee. So that's why I'm letting us linger here. This is important for you all to be able to get all these pieces out.
So Shannon, we've been talking about the bridge. There's another bridge. Are we talking about the project? Physical designs of the entire project or just the bridge that drops on both sides of the Columbia River?
That's the question for you all. This is your recommendation.
Program area.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like aesthetically, you can't just like drop the ball and pick it up.
They're not gonna like that, hit on.
I'd like the little continuity.
The salmon, sounds like I cut it there.
What salmon flags?
I'm gonna find some of those. So any other comments from folks online before we move forward?
I very much agree with the point Mary Ann just made, but
Wonderful. So we are talking about program area. And let's go ahead and do our 5 to 5 on this section.
I'm sorry, so what just happened here? Are we adding another line for more bridge or are we putting more something for bridges, plural?
So just like I did in the last one, I'll read the notes that I heard from you all before you make your decision.
Okay.
So with the physical design for this set on this slide, we'll do the second slide separately. Do folks support that? You'll use your 5 to 5. This will have the addition of, we will break the third bullet point out to be explore. Consider where there is opportunity for a welcome center. That includes all of the other pieces of that bullet around history of the region, including the tribes, approved cultural materials, all these other pieces. A second piece is to.
But it's important.
absolutely.
So somewhere in there, I need to see a plural bridge.
So
the one-
Break it into the entire.
Let's replace the word bridge with project there in the second bullet point. Filter into the project design.
Yep.
Mary Ann, I'm reading my colleague over here, and it seems like we can probably do better with the language. Mary Ann, can you offer some language that really captures what we're trying to get at?
How about a compound sentence
Okay.
that says bridges and project designs?
I endorse that.
I'm gonna say bridges and program design, because we
Program
say
design.
program, but yes. Okay. So we'll add the next addition is that the second bullet will include bridges and program design. Anything else? Yes.
I don't know if here's the right place, but if we're talking about program design and then here's to break down, if you have so many different contractors doing all the different work, there's risk to losing that continuity.
Mhm.
So I don't know if this is a place to add something like that, but some sort of an overarching way to assure that that aesthetic is consistently implemented throughout the program.
So we're adding that the aesthetic is incorporated consistently throughout.
In project delivery.
And you're just saying that irrespective of contractors, subcontractors.
Yeah, there's risk when you have it broken down all this, because there will be dozens and dozens of contractors, right?
Yeah, but there should be, those still should be.
Yes,
They'll still
absolutely.
have some structure and design standards.
Yeah.
Right, that the program would have approved. So the contractor will want to make those independent decisions, they'll be doing.
Yeah, we know though how it happens in the field.
Yeah.
And so what's the QA/QC
Right.
to assure that it actually.
That actually happens.
Mhm.
You have that problem.
Yes.
Yeah, I got to work. One of the other things that I think is really important for Portland in this space is making sure that our transportation networks connect with our neighborhoods in Northeast or whatnot. I'm not quite sure what the language exactly how to phrase that elegantly as I've just illustrated for you. But it still is a very important risk of that transportation networks, the Brunswick, all the off-ramps, all this sort of stuff, the bike lanes, connect to our neighborhoods as opposed to being just sort of plopped down on top of that part of the world.
So does it go in the first bullet, talking about the community connectors?
I think that's
Yeah.
You know, why is that specific to Evergreen Boulevard and not Marine Drive?
And
So look at the next week. Near
Y'all,
every-
please, I don't want everyone to talk at once. They can't hear us on there. So Mayor, please finish and then Greg.
And incorporating both active transportation facilities and green space throughout the program area.
I'm gonna be inelegant here. I got my staff member over there. Cynthia, do you have a recommendations on language on this one?
Yeah, I would just say, I don't know if people can hear me online, but Cynthia Castro, Deputy Chief of Staff for Commissioner Maps. We would like to see, we've advocated for active transportation connection, like bike connection to our Northeast Portland neighborhoods. There you go.
Thanks.
So connectors in this content is speaking to two specific things.
Yeah.
So the community connector at Evergreen is actually connecting downtown back with Fort Vancouver with a wider structure. So we've been talking about that. There's also connecting the community on Hayden Island with the extension of Tomahawk Drive and those connecting streets. So I think we probably need to just rewrite this bullet to be more inclusive and more specific at the same time.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, a recommendation to do that is take out near Evergreen Boulevard and the waterfront and just have that be the goal, and then do a colon at Evergreen, at the waterfront, at Hayden Island, at Marine Drive, and list the areas that are connected. Which honestly, the project is, doing a lot of that already, which is really great, and so. But it isn't necessarily, there's some more connect, I guess we should say, to Northeast and and there's a few other connectors we'd like to see into Northeast and in the freight community as well. So maybe, and others.
So I think what Greg's saying, go ahead, Greg.
And I hate to be, I won't say Debbie Downer, how about Robert Realist? We can't chase connections. For instance, there's folks who want us to go beyond project limits, go to make a lot of community connections. That's where we're looking for entities to bring resources to the table. And if there are gaps that are beyond our project or program limits, we need folks to step up. We can't be everything to everyone.
And Greg, that's where I was asking, do we have the high risk boundary, less risk, not at all? Do we have that area defined? Those
So
areas,
our program area is what we consider the area. Once we start straying outside of there, we have to make a very specific case of how we can step outside of that boundary to do.
then it would be important that we always have a map so that we understand this is the area, this is the name of the road that we're stopping at. Anything beyond is the city of Vancouver's responsibility.
I would also observe though that the area sometimes varies depending on what kind of impact you were talking about. So the idea of there being a single map is really actually pretty hard.
Okay.
And so there is that sort of like the zone that might be for transportation. Specifically, there is this question about how do you actually integrate with the mobility and with the neighborhoods, and that can be, it would be lovely to have it be a line on the map, and it probably won't be that clear. There's going to be some clarity because we're touching stuff, and then there's this weird gray area around that.
So just make it gray, call it very gray.
If I can give you a great example, once again, we were over at Clark College earlier in the week. And on Fort Vancouver Way, the city has taken what was 4 lanes, made it into 2, instead of more. And Clark College is saying, maybe we need to revisit that temporarily during construction so we can move traffic through there. So that may be a case of, it's not necessarily in our footprint, but it may behoove us to work with the city to say, can we do something to facilitate?
And that would be on us.
Yeah.
Okay, so with the addition of adding more detail to the first bullet to include Evergreen, HI, Marine Drive, and another one. Thank you. Waterfront. Making sure we're using language within the program area to specify, kind of separate from your decision. We'll figure out the map piece. Can we get our fist to 5 on this slide with those edits? Talk to me, Commissioner.
So, we broadly support the direction we're going in, and we really appreciate the amendments that we've had here. I think this particular slide has just changed so much before it's officially signed off. I think Portland would like to kind of see the slide again and see where we're at. So my fist there is not a principle. There's nothing here that I hate. However, given the sort of rich conversation we've had, I'm still not confident that we are capturing everything that's important to Portland and Vancouver in this space. So if we can continue to, if we can revisit this in the near future, that would be just, I think, really helpful to at least me sleeping well at night.
Yes, absolutely. And thankfully, because we're not using actual consensus, we will still move forward the recommendations, but we will work with you to show you the additions actually in the slide, and that's something we can share with the whole group.
Much appreciated.
And we can do that with all of them as you've made edits, so you can see those final recommendations.
Perfect.
Let's move to the previous slide. Oh, sorry, Corky.
Well, and I hate to slow it down, but I think what I'm hearing here, you might want to break that into 2 bullets, because we're talking about east-west connections. And then we're talking about connectors
Okay.
from, roads, and Carly's absolutely right. It's hard to map that out and say, well, 1/4 mile, it doesn't work. It depends on the specific connector. So I think we're gonna need to kind of look at each, whether it's a bike path or a road or whatever it is, how does that integrate into the surrounding community?
Okay. Thank you. Let's move to the previous slide. Okay, so this one, again, with the fist to 5, we were adding pedestrians, cyclists, businesses, local travel, etc., into the 3rd bullet, that it's not just residents. Additionally, want to have other emissions be considered. Using anti-graffiti designs in the bridge project instead of a coating or spray. We did a little bit on defining sustainable and environmental friendly, balancing the decisions with the life of the materials, but looking for lower carbon materials and measuring embodied carbon. Don't limit it to just ash and shells. Those are just examples. Anything else on that on this slide? Go ahead, Vicki.
Where did Nate's suggestion about the art being reflected?
That was in the one we just voted on. Yes, but I did say his too. Yes.
And on the anti-spray, I think both this and under sustainability, there will be inventions or new products that hopefully are better than an anti-graffiti spray that will come along. So being able to incorporate new technology without disrupting the whole process. And sometimes that's hard because I'll say, well, that's on there, so it would be hard to change. But how do you keep in mind that those changes must be looming?
And I apologize if I missed this. Did you mention including native plants and other elements for heat dome effect and sustainability?
I did not. Thank you. So we will also have include native plants. Vicki is adding in the use anti-graffiti designs in the program and incorporate new technology. Anything else? All right, let's do our fist to 5 on this one. Have to keep remembering not to put my hands up. Okay, 4s and 3s. Thank you, folks online. I got you. All right. Emily, let's go to the next slide, or the next two. We are getting very close on time. We still will end at 3:30, at 11:30. Promise 11:30. What we will do, if there's a couple of slides, I know we're not going to get through. So we will follow up with some sort of survey instrument for you all so that we can at least have some feedback and conversation and get something in front of the design team so they can keep moving forward with some of this without our process stalling the work that they need to do. So we can come back to it in our meeting, but we will follow up via email with some ways to get your feedback on the ones we won't get to today. So go ahead, Emily.
Yes, so under community benefits category, we have create riverfront public access points where feasible, provide recreation opportunities on Hayden Island, create additional communal and open spaces, including areas suitable for fishing and kayaking, create parks on both sides of the river, prioritize innovative developments on the land adjacent to the bridge with a focus on projects that promote accessible and affordable housing, and the potential use of the Expo Center as a construction yard and fabrication site.
And then Mayor Ahem.
Hi, Tom Hickey. I kind of feel like those first 4 bullet points at least are kind of the same thing each time.
Yeah.
There's a lot of redundancy in the way those are written up. And again, drilling down on recreation opportunities on Hayden Island, is that getting too specific? I mean, I think there should be recreation opportunities on Hayden Island, but why not the Marine Drive intersection or Vancouver? Why are we making that a priority at Hayden Island?
It's not that it's a priority, it's a recommendation that somebody made, so you can absolutely add to it.
Yeah, and I will say that has been something that has come up a fair amount, both in small groups here as well as out in the community. At Hayden Island in particular has been, I think.
Yeah, and Hayden Island has a lot of issues that they need addressed. I wonder at this stage whether that is drilling down too specifically, and we ought to just say create recreation opportunities, or just combine those all into a single statement that says make sure that there's water access and park opportunities throughout the project.
Thank you.
Yeah, I could go with that because I thought number 3 got very specific. I didn't see gold panning on number 3. So I will be doing general, yeah.
The city of Portland has questions as to why turning the Expo Center into a construction yard and fabrication site qualifies as a community benefit. That seems like a problem that needs to be mitigated. And I know we're short on time today, but I want to put that.
That's fine. I'm gonna push you all because these come from this group, so it's not, it's for us to talk through and figure out if it should be here. So I'm hearing you say this one maybe.
Yeah, if someone wants to defend that, I think from a Portland perspective, this feels like a problem as opposed to a benefit.
So I think this may have come up early on before the Expo Center kind of said, yeah, we're gonna be something different in the future. And there was at one point, a request to use Expo Center as a potential yard or part of their parking and make betterments to Expo Center for whatever future use they would envision. So that has kind of gone by the wayside.
Okay.
Wondering if we should just strike that altogether, that Expo Center altogether.
That makes sense to me. I'm not sure if this is even possible.
Nate, go ahead.
Yeah, Commissioner Maps, to your point, NAMAC's been in conversations with Metro about the Expo Center to make it attractive for the jobs that need to be created for this bridge and others. So I agree with you. It should not be seen as like a construction yard, but it definitely needs to be a catalyst for the work we're doing with Metro's portfolio, as well as the city of Portland and our transportation partners. So NAMAC is continuing conversations with Metro about making it a better community space for economic opportunities.
So should we generalize this to say, explore partnership options with Metro and the?
Please, yes.
Okay. Michael?
Just a quick comment, and it really applies to the first 5 bullets that we're talking about keeping. And I would just note that it's a great list of of amenities and uses. I would feel more comfortable if we could emphasize also the connectivity, multimodal connectivity, really, to other uses in the vicinity. For example, wouldn't want to put a park right on the river where there's only a parking lot and there's no way to get to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Eric and then Vicky?
Actually, building on what Michael just said, recognizing there's some consolidation in the form of those first several bullets that we reflect somewhere in there connection to existing systems. Because all the communities have trails, a multimodal system, that kinds of connection to existing systems. And wanted to highlight the intertwine effort, which is kind of a regional bi-state metro trail, multimodal trail system, and how that might inform this. But just want to make sure that these aren't just isolated things, but they're in the context of the work that's the amenities that already exist.
Vicky?
I would suggest striking the expo parking lot idea or concept. There's been quite a bit of planning going on. They've hired consultants to try to incorporate the Japanese American history and Manport and the indigenous communities that live there in what happens next. And I think they awarded some grants that address that. So it'll almost be seen as not very cool.
We did change that one to say explore partnership options with Metro regarding the Expo Center. That still feels uncomfortable. It's okay. I just want to make sure.
It would, yeah. I think that's fine. I just want for us to all understand how sensitive that location is.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Kelly and then Corky.
This might be controversial.
Then don't say it.
Okay. So I'm a bit confused because we are the Community Benefits Advisory Group, and this is the Community Benefits section of the Community Benefits Group. So I almost wonder, just to throw out this idea that we rename this and better define this section, because I heard interconnectivity, I heard design suggestions, so I feel like these all live under other categories of community benefits. And so I'm feeling a little confused about how to provide specific suggestions to the bucket of community benefits if they're all community benefits. And so maybe I'm just lost, but that's my thinking is like, do we need to rename this section to better define? Is it parks and public open space, or what are we talking about?
I think we're talking about land use.
Yes, right.
And
So
for
that's what I'm
opportunities
wondering.
with like sort of land use opportunities. I don't know if that's quite the right category, but this is all about like reusing space for ends.
This bucket is, this bucket that we're voting on today, but not everything that's in the community benefits bucket is, that's not true.
So that would help me to
So,
know.
I think we can further define what that means here, but remember our categories are rooted in the equity framework, and that's why this is categorized this way.
Okay.
So we can definitely do some work to kind of define what community benefits means within this context, since it's a smaller microcosm. Corky.
I think you can consolidate some of these bullet points, but just be a little careful to not, I mean, you could also just say, make it nice, so.
Yeah.
Specificity. I would also suggest that you keep one for Hayden Island, because, this goes way back to work we did many years ago where people on Hayden Island said, it's an island with virtually no public access to the water. I mean, there's some specific problems there. I would kind of hate to see that go away, but rather say, make sure we have some public access to water on Hayden Island.
Okay,
Maybe it's parentheses with EG 89, something.
Mhm.
But to call it out without.
Yeah, exactly.
Without excluding others.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, we are at time. We're gonna ask Greg to give us some closeout. You will
You want
get,
us to vote on this one?
I was gonna give you the option to do it online, but if you guys feel ready, let's do it.
Okay, I'm with it.
So let's use our fist to 5 on this bucket.